Star Wars Rebels Season 2, Episode 18, The Forgotten Droid. I think once again we had a pretty good episode. This one, of course, wasn't nearly as amazing as the last episode, or really the last couple, but it was definitely a fun episode. This one kind of went back to the sort of typical pace. I hate kind of saying that, but they've obviously had a great run of episodes. Probably like the past, I think, 5 or 6 episodes ever since they came back. So this one wasn't as amazing or anything like that, but it was still a fun episode. And it was actually interesting getting to see a Chopper episode, because I mentioned it would be interesting if we got one for him. And we actually got his backstory in Hera's episode, where we got more of her backstory, and we find out how she, I guess, technically met Chopper, but she basically rebuilt him. So, we kind of got his backstory from her backstory episode, or her, extra backstory episode. So we get just a normal episode with him, and it's his story. We do still get a pretty cool split in the story. It's mostly about Chopper, of course, but he finds this leg that is similar to his, and Chopper, being Chopper, he goes off instantly. He's like, I want this leg, and screw them. They can die. Basically, it's kind of how he did that. It's like, they can die if they're about to get in trouble. And he goes and he steals his leg. He gets left alone. And so, I was surprised how they did it, because I thought he'd be on this planet the whole time. And then as soon as he runs into, like, what seemed like just a building or something, it of course ends up being a giant cargo ship. And poof, he's off in space. I was like, I don't know where in the world this is going, because with him being on the planet, I was like, okay, they'll realize that he's gone, which they eventually show, because they didn't show that for probably like 10 minutes or something. I was like, they haven't shown a scene where they realized he was gone or anything, and then it's like, okay, they can't just instantly turn around because they need to focus on the fleet and getting the fuel to them. So it's like, alright, at least we got that answer, because they went a long time before showing them, as they were going through hyperspace, talking about, like, we have to go get Chopper, because I'm like, did they just not notice or something? Because it's Chopper. He's basically like the loudmouth character of the show, which is odd because he technically can't speak. But they did end up answering that. And once he was off the planet, I was like, I don't know how in the world this is gonna work, but I think they did a great job doing it. And eventually, it all kind of came back together. He ends up meeting this other droid who we find out was actually in the Clone Wars, which I thought was pretty interesting. And he's been kind of he's basically being degraded at this point. Like, he was a great navigational officer. He was the best in his class, we find out, which explains why, as an inventory droid, he was talking about being off by like 0.002% or something like that. And the guy's like, you're not a navigational droid. And I was like, that's pretty weird that he would bring that up, because typically droids are built to do certain things. And if he's meant to do inventory, why is it that he has this sort of free reign to do that? Or basically to say that, but it's because that's what he was initially programmed to do. And then basically he wasn't really programmed for inventory, he was programmed for the navigational stuff. And then they're like, your general died, and now we're just making you an inventory droid. So he still had his initial programming, but he could do the job of inventory, because it's just calculations and just counting, what's there. So I like how they kind of explain that, and Chopper helps him out, and he takes a little inhibitor chip off of him, and they actually become friends. And I thought that was actually pretty cool. I was really glad at the ending when he didn't actually die and Sabine was able to fix him, because I was like, I hope he doesn't just end up getting shot in the back and he dies. And that's what happened initially, and I was like, that really sucks. It actually made me a little sad, because no one really befriends Chopper. Like, they even say it, like, Hera's like, he doesn't have any friends. And I thought it would have been cool if we kind of got that, and seemingly, depending on what they do, I doubt he'll end up joining the Rebels, but at least from time to time, we'll have our own version of kind of R2 and 3PO, which I think would be much more entertaining, because Chopper is like the ultra aggressive version of R2D2, and then he doesn't have like a C3PO, and he barely has that now. Like, in even with the droid that's in this episode, he's kind of, he kind of goes back and forth with the banter, especially at the end. I thought it was really funny. And he was like, I can't believe you'd say that you could get, like, destroyed or dismantled in, like, 9 systems for that. And Chopper said something to him. He's like, oh, don't give me that. And he, like, points right at him. I was like, that was just really funny. And just it was a very human thing. He was like, oh, don't give me that. And then it just kind of ends. And it was just really funny. So hopefully we do get to see that kind of expand. It probably won't carry on, and he won't become, like, a main, member of the series. But every once in a while, I'd be totally fine if they had like sort of a silly little team up episode, or if other characters were with them, maybe Ezra or maybe Zeb. Probably Zeb the most because he's the one. He and Chopper, as much as Chopper and Ezra fight, Zeb is always on his back. It just always seems like Ezra's the one that's close enough to get hit all the time, but Zeb's always the one making the first joke. Even in this episode he does it. But I'd like to see that. I think that would work pretty well. I think they made a pretty cool dynamic in this episode, and he helps this droid kind of with free will. This is one of the things they always do in Star Wars, where it's like, at some point, these droids are like way beyond just robots. Like, it's almost like the Ghost in the Machine sort of thing at a certain point, because they're talking about free will and stuff like that. I'm like, that is leagues beyond just, oh, he's programmed to do this. He's been in the Clone Wars, and he wishes, he's wishes that he had free will and stuff like that, and he's friends with Chopper, stuff like that. That's very human, but yeah, that's been since the original movies. It's been very clear that they have personalities, and they say stuff like, I feel like this, and stuff like that. So it's almost like they, basically human anyway. So nothing new, but it's always interesting when it's a new character and they do that, and it's like, man, they're just like, it's so weird to really consider these as just droids and robots and stuff like that, because they have such very personalities just like normal people, even if they can't speak, like in Chopper's case with actual words. But I did like this episode. Of course, like I said, it cannot compare to especially the last episode, but we've been getting backstory and Force episodes, and the Zeb and Callus episode was really good as well. So they've been doing some like really really deep episodes, either Force based or character based, and this was just like a nice lighthearted fun episode, which is totally fine. Unfortunately, we didn't have an episode last week. I'm not sure what that was about, but we're back. I did say that we were going to get a new episode next week, even though I can't freaking tell what the episode's going to be about, because they were showing initially the first like 3 clips were from this episode, so I was like, I don't know why they even bother, but they do mention like, oh, maybe this base isn't so safe after all. I'm assuming that's from the next episode where they get to this new planet that Chopper sent them to. So I'm hoping that that is actually in the next episode, but either way, we're getting one next week, so I'm kind of fine with that. As long as we have an episode, it'll be fine by me. But kind of hard to tell what it's going to be about, because it seems like because when I was watching, I was honestly like, they just show stuff at this point. It's not even like, it wasn't even the same thing. It was like they literally just showed us the episode that just happened. Because when they would do the normal thing, it was like, all right, here's the same promo. It was like just like a little trailer of a bunch of different episodes. And this is like, they literally just showed probably like 10% of that promo was the episode we just watched, and then it ends on like the Yoda thing, and like most of it was old stuff, and it was like, it was either this episode or the last episode, and it wasn't like a bunch of episodes. It was like, here's the episode you just watched, here's like a little snippet possibly of next week's episode where they talk about the base possibly not being as safe as they thought, which I'm assuming is the new planet. And then everything else was from the last episode. So I was like, they're just showing stuff at this point. It's like, why can't they just give us real promos for this show? Unless, like with the last episode, they did a real promo for that, because it's like, hey, this is going to be like a huge episode. Definitely be sure to watch it. Other than that, it kind of shows, especially when they do stuff like that, because when it switched, for the last one, it was like, nope, here's an actual promo for exactly what's happening, and now it's gone right back to, basically nothingness, just jumbles of the episode we just watched in the last episode. It kind of shows that they don't consider it to be as important, because they aren't like saying, this is exactly what's going to be in the episode. It's just stuff from this season. And so it's unfortunate, but it does kind of show what they deem to be important episodes, and apparently it's been nothing. But all those other episodes should have had real promos too, because they were all great. But I'm looking forward to the next episode, regardless of what it is. They did the Malachor thing, which I mentioned last time. I couldn't remember what that was from. My friend and I were talking, and he mentioned it to me. It's from Knights of the Old Republic. That's why I remember that, because it's from that game. So I was glad to hear that when we were talking about it. He's like, okay, because he reminded me. So at some point, Malachor, I was hoping that it would be obviously, much more, much sooner rather than later. But that's definitely the sort of season finale type of thing. So sadly, I'm sure we're going to be waiting a couple more weeks for that, probably a month, depending on exactly how many episodes we're going to be getting this season. But this was a fun episode. I'm definitely looking forward to them getting to this new planet and really setting up a base, because that's kind of been what they've been looking for. And they were going to go to Yost, which I believe is where Malachor was. I believe Yost was the system, unless that was the planet, which it probably was. But I'm looking forward to them having their own base, because they have been flying like the entire series. There has never been just a base, and I'm kind of curious to see what that would end up being like, where they have their own space where they can build, their own weapons. If the Empire does decide to come in to the planet and attack them, they might have, artillery and stuff like that. I'd love to see that happen for the series, just because they've always been in space. It's always like we have our meetings on the main ship, and then we all go off into space, and they're just like a traveling fleet, through space. So I'd actually really love to see them have their own planet to land on, have a true base of operations that's, unknown to the Empire, and they can just build and, kind of recruit people. It's like, hey, we saved you. Once you go here, you'll be completely protected, and then they can kind of build um, a bit of a singular world for the series, because at this point they have that, and obviously they have, the overarching world of Star Wars in general. But as far as them being able to kind of bring characters in and they just have a place to be where we can see them a lot more often, we don't really have that yet. But we do get to see Sabine's sister in this episode, so that was actually pretty awesome. I was very surprised by that as well. So that was actually very cool. They kind of showed her in this one, and that's kind of what I want to see. If they have a base of operations, they might get more people just on the planet, even if they aren't in scenes a lot. If they're in like one scene or something, it's like, that's really cool. They're just randomly there. We get to see what they're doing. They might be able to, dialogue-wise, mention stuff that'll happen later in the season. And I think that'll just be really cool to have that sort of setup, because it makes it a lot easier than, you're traveling off to this system, we're going off to this system for a mission, and then we'll see you when we see you. Like, everyone goes off, but they'll come back eventually, to the same place. So I think it'll make it a little easier for us to get to see a lot of the side characters, which I would personally really enjoy. Maybe that means we get to see more Ahsoka as well, which is always amazing. But I'm looking forward to that. Definitely curious how this is going to play out with them having their own base and them securing this planet. But I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, I want to know specifically what you guys thought about Chopper's relationship with this new droid. I believe they do give a name for him, maybe one time. If they do give a name, like, at all, they only do it once, and I'm pretty sure it's when Chopper gives him his name, and then he's like, oh, well, I'm this, but I don't remember what he said whatsoever. They also have Chopper called by his actual name, which is C110P or something like that. So I thought that was pretty cool, because I don't believe they've ever done that in the show before. So I was like, alright, that's pretty sweet. And I didn't realize that that was his thing. I thought they just genuinely called him Chopper. I didn't think that it was based off of his actual name, like R2-D2. So I thought that was pretty cool, because it never even dawned on me, like, they probably call him Chopper because the way the letters and numbers mix, it kind of, you could spell out Chopper, and, plus, add an R to it, and it's Chopper. So I thought that was pretty cool, because I was like, that I should have known that, because it's Star Wars, because it just makes sense. But I didn't, so whatever. I thought it was cool that they mentioned it. I was like, oh, because it made me remember something, or made me realize something that I wasn't getting. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about the relationship between Chopper and his new friend. What you think about the new friend as a new character, if you want him to be in the show more, or not at all. If you don't want, like, in any regard, you don't want the R2 3PO sort of deal. Definitely want to know what you guys think about that relationship, and it possibly showing up, or you not wanting it to show up. And of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.